pretty quick here. It's going to get a little loud, a little noisy, because today is one of those days that the gardeners come and they clean up the place, and do their trimming and cutting and grass mowing and all that kind of good stuff, But before they do, I just kind of wanted to talk to you, It's like, I know you probably heard it all before, and you wonder, well, why bother? I mean, come on now. What difference is it that you're telling me than everybody else has told me? Well, none really. I just want to make sure that you got it. It's like you understand, because I'm sure you've already heard every message there is out there. You probably heard Billy Graham, and you probably heard, maybe a John MacArthur, a Greg Laurie, or Franklin Graham, or somebody, give some kind of message, or maybe you've watched those master series where they're trying to argue you into heaven, or they're trying to save you from hell, or they're trying to do something, be something, and somehow convince you to have something that you don't want. Maybe that's true, or maybe it's not. Maybe you just haven't figured it all out. That's really all that VidDevoGospel is really about. It's just what you want to do. Whatever you want to do is fine with me. I mean, I personally, if you don't want to go to heaven, that's your choice, and I personally don't have a problem with that. It's your way of living that you choose to live it. That's your opportunity in this life. And I wanted to make sure you understood that, that you can choose not to be a Christian. That's your freedom of choice. It's always been there for you. You can make any decision you want to make, anyone at all. As long as you know the decision you're making, I have no problem with you telling me, hey, you know what? I don't want to hear it. And I'll go, okay, fine. Whenever you're ready, let me know. If you don't, hey, I'm not going to bug you. I may not choose to do everything you're doing, because me personally, I don't like some of the things that, people do that aren't Christians, but I don't like some of the things that Christians do that are Christians. I like doing the things that God and I are doing because I kind of have fun doing them. And if that's what you want to do, is go and do what you enjoy doing, then go ahead. I don't stop you from doing that or choosing to do that. I only choose to give you what I know to be true. And the fact is, God exists. You kind of know that, really. I mean, you can pretend like you don't or contend that there isn't, but for yourself, you're the one that's going to make the decision, about how you deal with God, not if there is a God. Because we all know that there is a God. There is God himself, and he doesn't explain himself, and he doesn't contain himself into our understanding, but rather he chooses to reveal himself when he wants to. And he's going to do that pretty obviously, pretty soon, pretty quick. But if you want to try to live that long to see that, well, you can do that too. You can wait and see if all this end of the world stuff comes about, because quite frankly, it's going to happen. And you kind of know that too. You can trust your karma and see if you kind of make it and take it, where you're going to go with it, That's your choice, No offense, but that's what you get to do. You get to make the choice. My only concern is that you make the choice for yourself and not for others. That you decide personally, in the quietness of your own heart, that you're not afraid to face death head on and recognize that that's not the end of life or existence, that there is a eternity yet to come, and that, hey, you really want to, prove to yourself that there is a lake of fire, and then, go ahead. But when you're ready, when you really want to know of a certainty that there's something more than life, than some kind of heavenly existence sitting around in clouds, kind of like acting like that's all God intended for Christians, then maybe you should come talk to me instead of some of the other, people you might have heard from. Because they may not talk about tripping out on the reality of the universe, or maybe, going creation tripping, like going out into the existence of the universe and see what's out there, and all the ways that this eternal being that we call God is going to reveal himself in ways that we don't understand, and that we're constantly going to be learning, and we never stop learning, and that we go from ages to ages life, and that life is continually never ending, and that it goes from one set of circumstances and situations to another set of circumstances and situations that we don't even know what they are. It's almost like one of those karma things that you heard about and believed in, but isn't quite true. Well, that's because they all based their ideas on the Bible. They all knew in the beginning, way back when, before the flood, God, because it was kind of obvious at the time. But things changed. People kind of went off on tangents. They started adding and rearranging and changing things, to better understand, God in their own way. And so maybe you don't understand it, and maybe you want to talk to me about it. You can always get a hold of me. Just VidDevo it and try to contact me. We'll talk. Hey, see it all. There isn't anybody from any religion that I haven't quite checked into and said, well, that's interesting. It's wrong. Made a mistake somewhere along the way. I could usually point out where they made their mistake, but hey, they did the best they could with what they had, and God kind of knows that. That's kind of why God said, I'll judge you according to what your set of standards is. Your rules, your judgment, I'm going to judge you with. But the only problem is, I don't know how to tell you this, but even when you go by your standards, or say the Buddhist goes by Buddhist standards, they don't measure up because they don't live by their own standards. And you know that. You've seen Christians, and you've seen atheists, and you've seen Methodists, and you've seen Buddhists, and you've seen Taoists, and you've seen every kind of religion there is out there, whether Islam or Mormons or whatever it may be. They all look good, on the surface. And everybody, can put on a good act. But when you scratch the surface and, you hung around long enough, even Quakers or, even some of those, places where you thought they were so religious, you saw that there was still kind of sin involved, huh? You knew there was something not quite right. And that's the point, is that relationship with Jesus didn't have to do with religion as much as it had to do with dealing with the reality of who we are. God wanted to reveal himself in such a way that there'd be no doubt for a person to understand who he is. So he sent his son to make it perfectly clear. And that's why you can deal with religion if you want to, and deal with it in all of its manifestations and forms, and try to find the truth, or try to find if all paths lead to heaven or all paths lead to hell, or however you want to look at it. But the bottom line is, the only thing that makes a difference between all the other religions and Jesus is, quite frankly, Jesus. You see, Jesus didn't put his stamp of approval on anybody's religion or faith. He said, I say unto you. And that's part of the issue that goes on in life. This whole thing about salvation and this whole thing about eternal life, is serious enough that VidDevoGospel wanted to always give you a different way of looking at it and a different perspective, so you could completely comprehend the decision-making power you have to choose what you will do with your life. Because you can live it any way you want to, as we said. And Jesus saw that life was pretty miserable for those that were living in his day, in the religious way they were living in. They were so righteous, so holy, that even God couldn't stand them. Imagine that. God couldn't stand people who were serving him, supposedly with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. He said that their righteousness was as filthy rags. He said that their celebrations and their new moons and their Sabbaths were like, stinking to him. That he abhorred them. Wow. Imagine that. Imagine worshiping a God who doesn't like what you just did. Huh. So when Jesus came, he kind of said, look, you got it all wrong, but I say unto you. And that's why really, this salvation issue doesn't boil down to following Christianity or following church or following religion, as much as it deals with one aspect of that religious expression we call Christian. And that's that point of contact with God. Your point of contact, the place where you finally meet the rubber in the road, where, like wheels on a car, there's one place where the car actually touches the road, and that's the rubber of the tire. You don't, you're sitting inside. And that point of contact is Jesus. Jesus is the difference between every other religion and every other thing portrayed by any denomination, non-denomination, church, or person who's presenting to you some kind of way of salvation. The difference between any of them saying anything to you or making a presentation or trying to explain some information is Jesus. Is he real? Yeah, if he's not, then you don't have a problem. You can go live your life any way you want to, Quite frankly, I'll join you. But, you see, for me, I know he's real. There's no doubt about that, because he speaks to me and he talks to me, and, I talk to him, and we have conversations, and we care. And, it took me a while to get there. It didn't happen like, bingo, God suddenly said, Michael, wake up. And I woke up and went, who's that? Although it's kind of that way nowadays, but it's been getting better. I kind of go, huh? And it's not just the Bible, like some people like to say, oh well, just give me the Bible and that's all there is. Because people read the Bible, they don't get anything out of it. Maybe you've tried that. Maybe you started in Genesis and went, what? I don't buy it. Well, good. Question everything. But the bottom line is you question to someone when you ask them a question, and that should be God. And since we're talking about salvation, we should be asking God, what is this salvation that you, God, have said we have to have in order to avoid hell, find heaven, or somehow live in this eternity that Michael's talking about as far as universe tripping or learning things. And that's where you can make the difference. You can make a choice to investigate really all that salvation is or isn't. You need to make that determination to find out the facts and then make your own choice. You don't have to get saved. You don't have to. You can choose not to, and you can choose to get saved. Because the whole idea of salvation is being saved from something in order to be somewhere that you don't have to be. You can choose not to be saved, and just like in the ocean, if you choose not to be saved by a lifeguard, you drown. Bottom line. And the lifeguard will try to save you and try to knock you out, but then eventually he's going to give up and you're going to drown. And when you're ready, then I would say, make that decision. But if you're not ready, don't be phony about it. Don't try to be something you're not, when it comes to salvation as an issue. Don't try to test and see and, not really be there 100%. Rather, you find out the facts. You deal with it like a real-life human being and determine for yourself, is this salvation really an issue of me going to heaven or hell? And what are these places that are being described? And what is this thing when Jesus says, follow me, instead of like, go to church? Because nowhere does Jesus say, hey, go to church. Everybody says go to church because it's a good place to learn. And if you want to learn at home, hey, go do a self-help trip, Go on the web, go get a Bible, go read, go do what you want to do. But the bottom line is, in any kind of decision-making process, you should be smart enough. You should be wise enough. You should take the time to examine the facts and then make the decision for yourself. No one can make it for you. Nobody can say, oh, I got you covered, so you're going to heaven. Or, grace has covered you, so you're going to be there. You know already that you kind of, You need to figure it out. You're the one who's making the decision. I'm not. I've made mine. My choice is clear. My choice is simply to say, look, hey, you know, I got something you ain't got. I got a confidence, and man, I got a hope. And, you know, I know where I'm going, dude. You know, I mean, I'm excited about it. I got a whole universe opened up for me to explore. Man, I'm going to be tripping it, you know, and giving it, you know, and loving it and living it and doing it, you know, and experiencing things I ain't never seen before. You know, and I'm thrilled about that idea. I can't wait for this life to get over so I can get on with it. You know, and maybe you're stuck where you're at. Maybe you like what you got. Maybe you just want to enjoy what I look at and see as living in a garbage pit, because that's kind of what this world is, you know, compared to what God has got going on in the universe. So much more ahead, but it's your choice. So really, just investigate. Check it out. Prove it. Prove whether or not there is the need of a salvation, and then how to get that salvation. Because when you do, maybe you might want to check out, you know, VidDevo Gospels and see if one of the VidDevos might give you some insight into you talking to God and hearing from the horse's mouth, so to speak, from your Creator's mouth, exactly what salvation is and what you need to do about it.